is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Ken from All Chicago. Before we get started, I'll just kind of go through some housekeeping stuff. Everyone is going to be muted, so if you have any questions, please just use the question box, and I'll get to them when I get a chance. I'm going to kind of talk through some changes to the assessment that'll be going live within the next couple days. I'll get into those details later as well. Before we get started, though, I want to talk about kind of where these changes came from. Some of you guys attended the Coordinated Entry System Refinement Lab, which took place on March 8th. We had about 90 people from across the CoC that came and shared their feedback and participated in the session there. These people kind of ranged within their roles in the CoC from direct service providers, people within just coordinated entry lead partners, different areas of the CoC, workforce development, etc., and also people who served the entire or all subpopulations within coordinated entry as well. So we had a good mix of people there, and we think that we had some good discussions and good ideas. It's hard to believe that it's been over a year now since coordinated entry has started the rollout here in Chicago. And this next year, we'll really be focusing on refining the process. So it was good to start with that. During that day, we focused on 4 major components of a coordinated entry system, which are access, assessment, matching, and accountability. And we identified challenges and solutions that fell into 4 different areas. Those areas are increasing the continuity of coordinated entry while simultaneously increasing the nimbleness of the system. While we implement these refinements, coordinated entry still needs to continue while we're trying to kind of increase our ability to respond to changes. Next one is increasing the real-time and automated functioning of coordinated entry, improving the overall performance of coordinated entry, and then the last one would be increasing the referral to housed ratio through coordinated entry. And so what that means is really making it so that our referrals are more successful. They lead to people getting housed more often than they do currently. And so the reason that it's bolded is because that's what we're focusing on today. These assessment changes are really hoping, we're aiming them at getting this referral to house ratio higher. So the changes are in 5 different areas, which are veterans, youth transitional housing, area median income or AMI, single room occupancies or SROs, and then geography. So I'll touch base on all 5 of these topics as we continue. The outline of the webinar here, I'm going to kind of talk about the summary of the change in the assessment, the reasoning for the change, and then any concerns or considerations that you guys should be aware of related to the change. So we'll kind of follow that outline as we go. And we'll start with veterans. So we've made a few different changes to the veteran section of the assessment, and I've left some of the questions at the top of this picture: gender, primary race, ethnicity, just for some context, so you can see where these new questions will fall in the assessment. And so these will be pretty close to the top, like during that demographic section. So we've added a completely new section. So this U.S. military veteran question used to be within that demographics section, and then we had all the rest of the veteran questions at the very bottom of the assessment to only be completed if someone said yes to the U.S. military veteran. But we've changed that strategy. So the U.S. military veteran question is exactly the same as it was previously, but we've added this new question right below it. And it says, if not, were you discharged during training before reporting to a duty station? The text right below that says that if a client says yes to either of the above questions, please complete the remaining veteran questions below, including the offer of permanent housing. and then you'll see the remaining questions, and these have not changed. We've been asking these for months now. The difference is this question here, and the reason, and so I want to just kind of make you guys aware that in the context of this question, along with the text below it, it's telling you that only one of these two questions can say yes. So if someone is a U.S. military veteran, they were not discharged during training before reporting to a duty station. If someone was discharged during training before reporting to a duty station, you would not select yes for are you a U.S. military veteran. So only one of these can say yes. The other little change that we've done here is this is help text that will pop up if you place your mouse over the "Are you a U.S. military veteran?" question. And so we don't necessarily think that you'll be reading this to the participant, asking them, if you served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, were you in active duty? So that's not really how we envision this being used, but more so helping you within that conversation. If someone is unsure if they're a veteran, this is a large definition, and it's not it's a complicated thing at times. So we hope that this can help you within that conversation, and for you to make that determination if that person is a veteran or not, or if they were discharged before reporting to a duty station. So the reasoning for these changes, the main reason is that last month the SSVF program nationally changed their eligibility criteria. So previously, SSVF programs could only serve people who served at least 1 day of active duty outside of basic training. And so that was why we had that question on the assessment. However, they recently changed their eligibility to allow for people who were actually discharged from basic training. So the interesting thing about this, though, is that means some non-veterans, given the HUD and HMIS data dictionary definition of a veteran, will now be eligible for SSVF. And then the reason that we moved the rest of those questions up were that people were skipping them just far too often. So we hope that putting them in a more prominent place in the assessment, people will fill those out more appropriately when necessary. So just a quick tip, something that we haven't gone over too much, but related to the veteran question and veteran status. We want to make sure that on the client profile, so you see this picture of the client's profile here, we want to make sure that this veteran status is the same as the "Are you a U.S. military veteran?" question on the assessment. So I will kind of just I have the steps of how you would change that. So when you're going through the assessment, or when you're going to a client's profile before you start an assessment, you might want to make it a habit to look at this U.S. military veteran right there on the summary page before you begin the assessment to see what that says, so that you can make that decision during the assessment if they say they're a veteran, and you have that conversation with them, for you to afterwards come out and change the veteran status within the client profile. So those should match. And so in order to do that, you would click on the client profile tab. You would click on the edit pencil next to the client record. And then you would go ahead and change the veteran status and click save. Some concerns, so some things to just be aware of when you're asking these new questions and when you're having this conversation is that some people have been through being told that they're not a veteran when they were, multiple times. So different programs, different agencies have different definitions sometimes. So they can be, this can be kind of a traumatizing thing in some ways. So we just want you to be aware, you don't have to tell that person that they're not a veteran using that help text, but just make sure that the answers that you're inputting are correct. The next change is related to youth transitional housing, and this change is, so the context of where this question will be is that it's right above the the question, the other question that's related to youth transitional housing. And so this question is asking a person if they would accept a match to a site-based or project-based transitional housing program for youth. If you hover over the question, you will see the script. Now, this is something new that we're trying out, and it's really important because these questions can have some large impact on the person's match. And we do call this a script. We would prefer that you actually say this to the youth. This is a standardized housing assessment, and we want to make sure that some of these things are done in a standardized way, so that people really do have a good understanding of what they're saying yes or no to. So this first part of the script goes into detail about what a site-based or project-based youth transitional housing project may have. And that includes curfews, chores. Some have a no visitor policy, stuff like that. They may share certain rooms or certain amenities. And the second part of the script is really to get the person to understand that if they say no, they may have to wait longer for a match, right? So they will not be matched to a site-based or project-based youth transitional housing project if they say no to this question. And then at the last sentence there, is that the person can change their mind at any time. So, if they went to any skilled assessor, we want you to let them know that if they went to any skilled assessor, they could update their assessment to change this question so that they then would be considered for a project-based youth transitional housing. So the reason that we're making this change is really, as I said before, we're trying to increase that referral to housed ratio. And so what we've seen, this data is as of, not since February 2018, it's as of February 2018. We've seen that client declines are the third highest reason that people are not enrolled in the project that they're matched to. And so, and we have feedback from Youth TH, Youth Transitional Housing Providers, suggesting that youth decline project-based youth transitional housing far more often than scattered site youth transitional housing, and specifically for those reasons that I talked about earlier, with the sharing of amenities or not having their own space and stuff like that. So we want to present that option to a youth. Now, some of the things to be aware of, and I would definitely have this conversation or have this be a part of your conversation with the youth, is that most of our youth transitional housing projects are project-based. So more than 50% of them are project-based. So they may wait much longer waiting for a scattered site unit than, or scattered site match than they would if they were if they were being considered for project-based matches. Okay, and then just to reiterate, they can of course change their mind at any time by updating their assessment, going to any skill assessor. Another small change that we're making is just with the area median income. And so, the biggest reason is that the 2018 AMI was released. So this was released a couple weeks ago. So we're going to be updating the numbers in there. And then the other thing that you'll see is that right now on the assessment, we have 30, 50, 80, and 100% AMI listed, but our drop-down box only has 30 and 50. So if you picked greater than 50, we don't know if it's 80, if it's 100. And also our projects don't actually use those 80 or 100. They only use 30 and 50. So those projects currently receiving matches through coordinated entry only use 30 and 50 as thresholds. So we will only be showing 30 and 50 now in the chart. Okay. This may change in the future as we bring on more projects that have different eligibility criteria, but right now, this is what it will look like once these assessments go live. The next thing, the next two changes are together on the assessment, so I'll kind of talk about them in tandem. And this is to show the context. They are below the criminal justice questions, which are near the end of the assessment. This section header is just a placeholder we haven't necessarily thought of how to describe these yet. So that's just a placeholder. It'll be different. But this is just to show you where those questions are. And so the SRO question is very similar. Both of these questions actually are very similar to the youth transitional housing questions in that they are exclusionary. We're giving people an option to say, I would not accept a match based on these things. So all of the concerns are the same, and these work in a similar way. So this first question explains what an SRO is and asks the person if they would accept an SRO match. If you scroll over it, or if you hover your mouse over it, the help text will pop up, and this is a script much like the youth transitional housing one. This just tells the person, again, they will not be considered for SRO project, even if they're prioritized for that unit. So they will be skipped if they were next. And this can, mean waiting longer, just like USTH. If you hover over the geography question, and so there is a little script there, some people will not or are not able to live on a certain side of the city. Is there any part of the city that you'll refuse to live on if offered a housing option there? And we give two different options. So they can decline living on 2 of the 3 sides of the city. This could obviously increase their wait time. And if you hover over the question, it will say, if you select the side of the city and an opening is available that you're eligible for, you will not be considered for the opening. This is the drop-down menu for these questions. There is also an NA, I will live on any side of the city. You can also leave the question blank if someone says they will live anywhere. The goal here is similar to the UTH project or question. We have feedback from SRO properties that are saying that clients are declining SROs at a higher rate. They don't want to share amenities and such. So we're hoping that this question will help alleviate that issue. And our rematch request data suggests that location is a significant cause of client declines as well. So that is where those questions come from. Many supportive housing projects for individuals contain SRO units, so this can, again, increase the wait time for a person if they're trying to wait for a studio or a 1-bedroom, a unit for a single individual. And then, just as the UTH, you can update these questions at any time so that the person then would be considered for SRO or would be considered for a certain side of the city that they previously declined. So these questions will go live on Friday. Sometime during the day on Friday, I'll be pushing the update to the assessment. I'll send out an email to everyone letting you know when the changes are live. And so your next steps really be after that is to begin assessing new households just as you would. You'll have no other choice but to use the assessment with these questions on them. Please answer them if at all possible so that we can begin not matching people who would definitely decline these housing options. And then another important step that you can do is that if you're still in contact with any of the households that you've already assessed, you can go and update their assessments beginning on Friday so that they can be matched appropriately. So please go back. If you're still in contact, ask people to, these few for questions or so, so that we can make sure that we, can match people appropriately. And to update an assessment, you can click on this link. I'll be sending these slides out to everyone probably tomorrow afternoon. Once I finish the last webinar, this is the link that you'd use to complete an update assessment to the coordinated entry assessment. So that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, I will stay here for a minute or so so I can answer those. I haven't gotten any yet. If not, I appreciate you dropping in. You can always email me any questions as well. Not seeing any come in. So I'll go ahead and end the webinar. Thanks for coming through, and go ahead and email me if you have any questions. Again, these changes will go live on Friday, April 27th. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.